Welcome back to Mid-Cap Radar. Well, two stocks that have been in focus in the last couple of trading sessions have actually been Waaree Energies. Remember, the company also delivered its results, but there's also been a bigger story that's played out in the last couple of days. The other stock that we're discussing is actually Premier Energies. Nikhil, thank you so much for joining us. In the last couple of days, what we've actually done is we've highlighted the fact that there have been significant duties that are proposed to be imposed by the USA on Southeast Asian countries like Cambodia, Vietnam. You've been tracking this sector quite closely for quite some time, and in fact, you've also looked at quite a few global names. First up, what have you made of the likely imposition of the tariffs? In some cases, as high as 3,400%. It's almost 35, 36 times tariffs. What does this mean for the US market? What does this mean for Indian exporters like Waaree and Premier? Could you quantify and qualify this particular development for us?
Sure, Vivek. Thanks for having me on the show. So see, this development, if you see, it's been in the works for almost a year now. So what happens, US has a demand of solar modules of about 50 gigawatts a year. Right now, on the module manufacturing side, they have finally reached almost sufficient capacity. But till a year back, they did not even have that. On the cell manufacturing side, they still have about 12, 13 gigawatts equivalent of capacity against this big demand that they have. So they are heavily dependent on imports. And from imports, they were importing not from China, but primarily 70-80% of their imports were coming from Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia. And in most of these markets, it was usually Chinese companies who had set up base in those regions to export into the US market. Now, due to petitions filed by First Solar and other US-based companies, US government is investigating whether anti-dumping duty needs to be imposed on these geographies. And yesterday, the judgment moved forward, and the duties announced, as you said, were, very large. So on Cambodia, almost 3,400, 3,500% duties, and even on other of these three countries, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia as well. So massive duties coming on them. So who gains from this? So the consequence of this, one is local manufacturing in US will rise substantially. There is already a lot of under construction solar cell and module manufacturing capacity in the US. And in the interim, while that local capacity comes up, markets outside these four countries, which is primarily Indonesia, Turkey, South Korea, and even India, to some extent, gains as they will see rise in export of solar cells into the US market. And to give you a sense of prices, so solar modules in US sell between 25 to 30 cents a watt. Whereas the Chinese modules globally sell at 9 cents a watt. So there is a big price arbitrage in exporting into the US market.
Nikhil, good afternoon. Thank you for joining in. Be that as it may, I have a counter question for you. This might be beneficial in a way for these Indian companies. They may not have a significant export exposure in general, but the Trump administration itself is not very green energy friendly, be it solar, be it wind. They want to abandon every form of non-conventional energy and go back to conventional. So how does all of this fall into place in the long term? Because this uncertainty, this regulatory uncertainty will continue to persist.
So you're right. So in terms of focus from the US government side, they are more focused on gas turbine, gas-based generation rather than wind. But solar will continue to be a decent part of their incremental generation capacity. It's faster to commission, whereas gas turbines, there's a waiting time of 3 years in the US. So they will have to depend on solar generation. So almost 50 gigawatt a year, we don't see that number coming down a lot. So that demand in the US will be there. But the export opportunity, which is arising due to these events, we think will be a 1 to 2 year opportunity at best, because local supply in US will come in the meantime. So to your question, 50 gigawatt solar, we don't see that coming down in the US.
Got it. So Nikhil, 50 gigawatt is the current opportunity size. Now, currently, what is it that Indian companies like Waaree, Premier, some of the other unlisted names too, what is it that they are able to garner? Post imposition of duties, do they become more competitive? And what kind of volume gains can the Indian companies actually go ahead and stand to benefit in case duties come into fruition?
So for a company like Waaree, 20% of their business comes from exports and from a revenue standpoint. So we don't see that number of 20% change a lot. But yeah, the margins they make on that could be even better than what we envisaged due to this lower competition now coming from the Southeast Asian players. And in the overall basket for US, India would be, I think, about 5 to 10% of their imports on the solar side, module plus cell, would be from India.
So in that case, Nikhil, how does this entire Indian landscape shape up now? What do you foresee for companies like Premier and Waaree? Is there a preference that you have among the two, and if so, why?
Yeah. See, near-term earnings for both these players and the space in general will be very strong. In fact, Waaree reported today the numbers were even stronger than what we envisaged, and their guidance for FY26 is almost 30% above consensus, not just us. So numbers near term continue to be super strong for the space. But in the long term, the challenge we see is that this export story dies down in a year or two. And on the domestic market side also, there is a supply glut which comes as many players are setting up solar cell and module capacity, including much larger players like Reliance Industries, who in their annual report guided on 20 gigawatts of solar equipment manufacturing capacity by FY27.
Understood
So
that.
strong near-term but long-term challenges. Yeah.
Nikhil, so strong near-term earnings is something that you expect the sector will enjoy. You've said that there could be intensified competition coming in as far as domestic manufacturing is concerned. So overall, how would you play this particular sector? We understand that you're quite cautious when it comes to both Waaree as well as Premier. Would you change your stance in the near term, especially, Waaree has guided for almost doubling, and if you look at the upper end of the guided band, EBITDA, they're looking to more than double as far as FY26 is concerned. Would you turn more positive on both of these names?
See, their earnings, as I said, will be better than what we envisaged for FY26 and maybe FY27 also to some extent. But still, a long-term view is intact. I mean, any company I speak to on the renewable front is adding cell module manufacturing capacity. And there is only so much India can absorb of it. So beyond the 2 years, FY26-27 is where I see the challenge for this industry in general and where I see a supply glut. So hence, from a long-term perspective, we continue to be negative. And we believe if one has to play this theme, and if Waaree and Premier valuations are correct where they are, there could be other proxies to play. So in our coverage, for example, we do have Renew Power, not listed in India, listed on NASDAQ. But the whole company is available for $2.5 billion, half the price of Premier, despite having more manufacturing capacity than them, despite having massive power generation capacity in renewables. And similarly, another company we don't cover, Tata Power. They have 2x the cell manufacturing capacity of Premier, and the whole company is available at something close to Waaree right now.
All right, Nikhil, thank you so much for sparing time and joining us today, and hope to have you more often on this forum. That was Nikhil Nigania of Bernstein on this duty imposition by the US and the prospects for stocks like Premier and Waaree. By the way, Waaree is now up 18%. Building on to its earnings reaction, Premier Energies too, carrying on from where it left off in yesterday's trade, another 5.5% higher there as well. By the way, the Nifty is now up 100 points, recovering from the lows of the day. Take a short break, more on the markets and specific stocks on the other side. Stay tuned.